Yeah, let the big dog hunt. Hello again, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Kallas Remarks with your host, Joe Staszak, my man over there, Steve Kallas. A lot to unpack today, Steven. How you doing, my friend?
Oh, good, Joe. Great to be with you as always.
You too. Selection Sunday is upon us, but we have other things to get to. Ben Simmons Night in Philadelphia last night. The much-awaited game since the trade, March 10th. Everyone had it on their calendar. I could have told you then there's no way he's going to play, but he did come out for warm-ups. I had some video of him on the bus and outside, getting razzed a little bit. And then the game happened, and it wasn't really much of a game. Harden, it looked like a playoff game for Harden because he stunk. Embiid was hacking Embiid in the first half, 19 times to the free throw line, and Durant went nuts. Seth Curry went nuts. They lost by 29 at home. And if you're trying to evaluate, well, who won the trade? They did it without Ben Simmons. They won by 29 on Sixers soil. Like, can you explain that?
Well, I thought the question for Harden was whether he was really healthy or whether he had lost a step. He didn't look that great, when he played for the Nets. Once in a while, he had a good game, or they changed the rules on those shot fouls that they call. So it wasn't clear. But then you watch him play the first 5 games with Philly, you're like, oh yeah, he's Harden. But Shaq and Barkley, they slaughtered him because he's not good in the big game, and he was terrible in this game. He went 3 for 7 from 3, but he went 0 for 10 from 2. And only 2 guys in the NBA have gone 0 for 10 this year from 2. And that's James Harden and Russell Westbrook had one of those games.
Former teammates.
Which is pretty interesting. But you're right, wasn't a game. I thought they tried to beat up Embiid physically at the beginning. And it was interesting because after the game, Durant said, the guy's a great player. He took 19 foul shots in the first half. It's hard to get your rhythm as a team when you have one guy taking 19 foul shots. And I think there's some validity to that. But the only good thing I take out of that for the 76ers was the first time I saw Tobias Harris with Harden and Embiid look like Tobias Harris. And he played pretty well. He had nothing in the first quarter, but after that, you can argue he was their best player. I mean, Embiid was only 5 for 17 from the floor. Harden was terrible. But the flip side of that is Maxey was like he wasn't in the game, Maxey. So I don't know who's going to be that number 3. Originally, we thought it would be Tobias Harris, but Maxey has been playing great. Now they're saying the big 3 is Embiid, Harden, and Maxey. And I'm like, well, if Harris can play well, they might even have a big 4, but I don't know if there's going to be enough room for that big 4. I don't know if Maxey's playing great, does Harris get hurt? If Harris is playing really well, which I thought he did yesterday for the last 3 quarters, is Maxey affected? So we're just going to have to wait and see. But, Seth Curry had his own grudge there, right? They traded him. He played great. He had 24. He had more than, Curry had 24. I think Kyrie had 22? And Durant had like 29, I think. But the Nets are going to be tough. I mean, you just obviously saw why you don't want to play them. And it looks like it's going to be hard for them. Impossible to get to 5th. I think a slim chance to get to 6th. I think they're like 5.5 games out of 6th. And I think they're going to have to settle for 7th, which is going to be fascinating because, they'll have to win that first game.
Yeah, no, they will. I mean, it was just, it took the crowd out of the game. I mean, initially their tickets were like, I think they were being asked $20,000 a ticket to go boo Ben Simmons. I don't know why you would pay that, but, wow. And then, I mean, it's not over. I mean, they'll get theirs, believe it or not, but, I like to chalk it up to, hey, it's one game. It's the NBA. Stuff happens in the NBA. Look, they lost to the Celtics by it seemed like 80 points a few weeks ago. And they're still cruising, but a little rough to have that happen there. And Seth Curry, did you mention Seth Curry? Because I was telling you beforehand in pre-pro I think I used to feel sorry for him because he was Seth's brother, and to be compared to that, you were telling me, did you give that stat? Can you give that stat?
Well, I don't know if it was the game last night or on ESPN, but they said he's the 4th highest percentage 3-point shooter in the history of the NBA. Higher than his brother. His brother takes so many, of course.
Right.
I wasn't aware of that. He shot the lights out yesterday. He's a big addition. If you have even just Durant and Kyrie, I shouldn't say just Durant and Kyrie, but if you have Durant, Kyrie, and Simmons, and Simmons is going to go to the basket. He's not taking any shots. So, outside shots, I mean. So Seth Curry, it seems to me, as many open looks as he's getting now, he's going to get even more because you're bringing in a guy who will see how long it takes for his back to heal now that this game is behind him, Joe. We'll have to keep an eye on that. It probably feels better this morning, I'm thinking. But, he's actually the perfect addition to that team because they don't need more shooting, but they could use a lockdown defender. And as we talked before, it'll be interesting if they wind up playing them in the playoffs, since everybody says, Simmons is one of, if not the best defensive player in the league, and he can guard 1 through 5. I don't think he's going to be guarding Embiid. I could be wrong, but if he's guarding 1 through 5, although they did do a good job on him yesterday, he went to the foul line, 19 shots in the first half, but he only shot 5 for 17 from the field. He wasn't Embiid. Good numbers, 29 and 12, I think, but he wasn't Embiid, and Harden was terrible. And boy, the TNT guys were killing them. It was very interesting, but it wasn't a game from the get-go. I think they were even up by more than 29 for a while. I think it was in the 30s for a while.
It was.
And what you said, if you're a Sixer fan, you went to that game, you paid a fortune, you couldn't be more disappointed because it was never in doubt, and they never, made a run to get remotely close. But I do take out from the fact that Tobias Harris played very well and looked like he was part of the flow of the team, which he hasn't looked at all. Now, I don't think they beat anybody. I know they beat the Knicks twice. Minnesota's good, but they're not great. So Harden tried to put a positive spin on it after, right? He said, we got our butts kicked tonight. That's good for us. I don't know if it's good for us. The question is he going to be Harden in the playoffs? Because if he's bad Harden, they have no chance to win a championship.
No, I agree. Absolutely agree. All right, let's talk a little.
Could I just give you one? I just want to give you one quote from that game, which
sure.
Maybe you'll tell me it's me, but Reggie Miller, who, you kind of like Reggie Miller as an announcer, but they showed Dr. J in the stands, right? He rang the Liberty Bell before the game. He looked like Joe Cool with the hat. And here's what Reggie Miller said during this game. Dr. J, quote, arguably the greatest Sixer to ever play the game. Now, there was a guy named Will Chamberlain who played 3.5 years for the Philadelphia 76ers. And I just happened to pull his stats for those 3.5 years. And I just want to give you a couple of them. Only 3 full years. He got traded mid-season from the San Francisco Warriors to the 76ers and, put up 30 and 22. But his 3 full years, he led the league in rebounding all 4 years. He averaged 24 rebounds a game, all 3 years. He averaged 24 rebounds a game for the 3 years. His first year there, he led the league in scoring. He averaged 33.5 a game. In the next year, 66-67, which many people still believe, old timers, greatest team ever, right? Hal Greer, Billy the Kid, Kangaroo Kid. They had an unbelievable team, and they killed the Celtics in 5 games that year on their way to the championship. His scoring came down 24 points a game, but he averaged 24 rebounds a game and 7.8 assists per game. The next year, he also shot 68.3% from the field. That might have been the highest ever back then. I didn't have time to do the research, but he led the league all 3 years in minutes played, shooting percentage, and rebounds, okay? And the next year is the year he led the league in assists. I mean, this is Will. Nothing against Dr. J, great player, Hall of Famer. But please, arguably, no. You take the side of Dr. J, Reggie. I'll take the side of Will. It's not an argument. But I guess, again, you get caught up in Dr. J. I mean, he hasn't played in a long time. But there's the new thing that I'll get to later where everything seems to start at the merger, 76, 77. And just because Dr. J is there, and again, God bless him, you can't be saying he's arguably the greatest Sixer ever. I don't care if Wilt only played 3.5 years. I'm sorry. It's just, he's got so much black on his type. They talk about the baseball players, black on your type, you led the league. If you go to Basketball Reference, there's so much black on Wilt's Wilt led the league in scoring his first 5 years in the league. Come on.
That's ridiculous. Just ridiculous.
Oh, and the year after they beat the Celtics and won the championship, I should say, he scored, I think, no, I'm not sure if that was the year he scored 50 a game. I take that back. Let me check. No, that was earlier. Never mind. That's for my next stat on Wilt that I'll give you at the end of our NBA conversation.
Just a side note. I think Wilt Chamberlain had 2 parents and 6 siblings. None were over 5'9". Just a little.
Is that true?
Yeah. None.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's a great one.
Of the top 10 NBA players who didn't have, I think it was I saw a thing, shortest parents for NBA players. I think Russell Westbrook has the shortest parents, like 5'6" and 5'8" or something like that. But Wilt's were 5'9" and under. It's incredible. And none of his brothers and sisters were tall either. He was 6'11" in like 8th grade. Yeah, I know, right?
That's fabulous.
Unbelievable. All right, let's baseball. It's back. That's your sport, bro. It's back. They finally reached an agreement and they expand. When I grew up, and I know you did too, at some point, 4 teams made the playoffs. It was in the day, it was the Phillies and the Reds just going for the World Series, or the Dodgers. And when they finally made it, it was the Dodgers, and the other teams in the American League would vie, and then you play for a World Series title. There's 12 teams now that make the playoffs. I'll get your thoughts on that. Of course, that was one of the sticking points because the owners get a lot of the TV revenue money for that, and the players are playing more games. The luxury tax went up. There will be 162 games as usual, and I forget what else they've added. But what do you think of the new deal?
They're going to have DH in the NL. Which
DH in the NL. That's correct. Yep.
And they're also getting rid of, with all the beer league softball stuff, no runner on second. Both games of a doubleheader will actually be 9 innings now. But this is the most interesting thing to me. All that's important. It's a 5-year deal, and that's important. But now Major League Baseball has a 45-day window to decide, and I wonder if that's unilateral, I don't know, to decide on whether they want to have a pitch clock and whether they have a ban on shifts. I didn't realize that was on the table to maybe be an actual rule, but MLB has 45 days to decide whether they want to try and implement that for 2023, for next year, not this season. But it would seem to me the players would have to agree to that. It wasn't clear. That's all. I got all that from ESPN. It wasn't clear, but it just says MLB has 45 days to decide. But I don't know if that means to decide whether to put it in play, and then you go to the players. And even though you can argue the shift has really semi-ruined the game, and it's so much harder to get hits when you're pull hitters, it just strikes me as to change the game like that, Joe, is really changing the way the game is played.
Yeah.
Look, they shifted on Ted Williams in the 40s. Lou Boudreau, the manager of the Indians, who was the shortstop also, he put in the shift against Ted Williams, who was a dead pull hitter. And I don't think Ted Williams ever tried to do anything like hit the other way, bunt it down the third base line. So I'm on the fence on that one, because I agree it has hurt the game from an offensive perspective. And, everybody wants to see offense. But by the same token, to rule you can only have X players on one side of the field, that just strikes me as changing the way the game has played by a rule.
Right.
So I'm just not sure about that. Will the game be more offense if they do that? Absolutely. And if they think that scoring sells, and scoring does sell, this isn't chicks dig the long ball, because it don't matter if you hit a long ball what the shift is.
I think it's ridiculous. I think if you want to put 9 people behind the catcher, then go ahead.
I wonder if you're having a generation of young hitters, real good high school players, college players, minor league players, if they're actually now literally trying to learn to hit the other way, which once upon a time was a skill, of course.
Right, of course.
You're a lefty hitter, the third baseman comes in, you want to try and slap it by him. That was like a skill.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you're a lefty hitter and they play you to pull, all you have to do is hit a ground ball to third.
Right. Yeah, right.
So there hasn't really been a big change. A few guys do that. I'm trying to think. There are a couple of guys who laid down bunts a few times every year. But it should become a real skill that should be learned. We'll see what happens. They might recommend that because at the end of the day, everybody thinks for every sport. I mean, look at the football passing rules. Basketball, who walks going to the basket? Nobody. 3-point shot, maybe they should have a 4-point shot now because the 3-point shot is too close for like 50 guys in the league, not 50. So we'll see what happens, but it seems to be the view of life in the 21st century is we all want to see more offense. I'm not sure that's true for me. I like offense, but I could watch a 2-1 hockey game if it's a really well played hockey game.
Sure.
And I can certainly watch a 1-0 gem pitched baseball like you used to watch decades ago, where, pitchers actually might have both finished the game. That might be 30 years ago. I'm not sure, Joe, but you know what I'm saying. It's interesting. Once again, greedy owners against greedy players. You kind of root for the players, but not as much anymore. If Max Scherzer is making more money than a couple of teams, it's just, and they did fight over the minimum salary, which is now $700,000 minimum, and it kind of goes up every year. So to me, the last guy on the bench in Major League Baseball getting $700,000 is a pretty good gig.
I'll take it. Yeah. I don't care if I get in a bat ever. Yeah. Interesting stuff. All right. So that happened amidst a lot of other stuff going on in the world of sports. Of course, we haven't even, and we won't today because Selection Sunday, we'll probably talk about what's going on heading into the tournament. Maybe we'll even tape next Thursday before the tournament starts. But some good stuff in college hoops right now. But in the pros, Aaron Rodgers, again, he likes to drag things out, a little bit of a drama queen, but he's deciding to stay in Green Bay. And all of a sudden, next day, by coincidence, Russell Wilson is now a Denver Bronco. Because I thought all along Denver really wanted Aaron Rodgers. Once he decided to stay there, I thought it was a good move by Denver as well to go after Russell Wilson. Interesting. I wonder how Teddy Bridgewater feels because he's not a franchise guy, but he's not a bum either. And I even think he's a manager, but maybe even like he's in a weird spot. But again, Jared Goff got his team to a Super Bowl and they upgraded. So I think, watching the Rams do what they did, they haven't had a first-round pick since 2017. It shows you don't need to, or if you have a guy like Howie Roseman and they're bust anyway, maybe you can win. But the Rams went all in. They kept going all in. They upgraded the quarterback when they thought that they had a quarterback, got him Super Bowl. Didn't work. I like what the Broncos do. I don't know if they have the pieces around them, and Russell Wilson's 33, but now they have an elite Hall of Fame quarterback. Your thoughts?
Well, that's the new MO, right? It's a copycat league. The Bucks did it with Brady. And then last year, same thing.
And I'm sorry to interrupt. It drives me nuts that are we all just realize you and I talk about this 10 years ago that you're nothing without an elite quarterback. Nothing. We talk about 2 quarterbacks who won a Super Bowl who weren't elite, and that was Brad Johnson 22 years ago or 20 years ago, and Trent Dilfer, which was 22 years. You know what I mean? Everyone else, look at the quarterbacks. They're elite. They're elite quarterbacks.
I think, I don't know, the NFL front offices have to know that, but they're hard to come by, and then you think you have one, and then you lose 3 or 4 years, and then you think you have another, and so but what they gave up, and I understand you give up the sun, the star, and the moons because you want to win this year, and it worked for the Rams. But they gave up Drew Lock, who, I don't know, is he going to be the starting quarterback in Seattle? If it is, it's probably already is a total rebuild. They also released Bobby Wagner because he was making so much money. So this might be wave the white flag on this year, which they'll deny. But, they got Drew Lock, they got Noah Fant, the tight end, and Shelby Harris. But they also get they get a first and a second this year and a first and a second next year. That's a lot. But, as you said, you got to get the right guy.
Who's quarterback in Seattle? I mean, who's there? Matt Hasselbeck coming out of the booth. I mean, what's going on in Seattle?
I guess right now you tell me it's Drew Lock, I guess. Drew Lock is
and what's that going to do this year? Really? That's what I'm talking about. That's my point.
I think it's wave the white flag already for Seattle, but they'll have two more really good, a 1 and a 2, in addition to what they already have, and a 1 and a 2 next year. But you're right, it all doesn't matter unless they get a quarterback. And that's what's happened in the league. Carson Wentz, of course, going to Washington. What's Frank Reich thinking? He gave up after 1 year because of those last 2 games. He had like 27 touchdowns and 7 picks.
Which was before last year, before the final year with the Eagles. That was about his thing. He set an NFL record 3 years in a row, 20 or more touchdowns, 7 or less picks. That was his thing. But Indianapolis, the ownership didn't really like him from the get-go. I think the whole not taking the vaccine and whatever, putting the team possibly in jeopardy. And, the stats are one thing, but they had like a 96% chance of making the playoffs, and they lost a game at home to the Raiders. And then they lost badly to a 4-win Jacksonville team or 3-win Jacksonville team.
And I think that is what sealed it, because if you look at it, Jared Goff, who got to a Super Bowl, but can't get over. If you look at Jimmy G, much as I like him, can't quite get over the hump. I think they must have decided if this is how he performs in the last 2 games when we only need 1 win against bad teams, how's he going to win the Super Bowl? We might get there or near there, and he'll Jimmy Garoppolo us in the Super Bowl. No, I think that's what happened, because they gave up a lot to get him, and now he's already gone. And they only got 2 threes for him. I mean, that's not a lot. Darius Leonard had a great tweet. I don't know if you saw it. He said, "This will be my 5th year, and this will be my 5th quarterback."
That's hilarious.
And then he had nice things to say. Carson, you were my guy. So obviously he was a Carson Wentz fan. But yeah, Darius Leonard, I think he's like an all-pro this past year, and he's got 5 quarterbacks in 5 years. So that's tough. Also, Khalil Mack to the Chargers. That's going to help the Chargers. And they gave up a 2nd and a 3rd.
That's fine. So, it's fine with me.
Yeah. And Rodgers was quick to say he didn't sign this new contract. He's agreed to take less money for this coming year. And even though they franchised Adams, they're trying to get him a long-term deal. The original thing was Rodgers was signing 4 years, $200 million, highest paid quarterback ever. But he came out and said, "I'm going back to the Packers this year, but I haven't signed that contract yet." He probably wants to make sure Adams gets paid. And he is taking some money off his 2022 contract, presumably so they can sign Adams and maybe some other guys. I don't know, but it's kind of late in his career for it to finally dawn on Aaron Rodgers what Tom Brady did for 15 or 18 years or whatever for the Patriots really helped put them over the top for the whole time. And and he didn't slaughter Tampa Bay wise. I think what he got $25 million a year, right?
Oh no, he didn't. He never slaughtered the Patriots. Didn't slaughter Tampa Bay.
Right.
His
So
makes more than his wife's the breadwinner.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's the old how much is too much. Doesn't matter. I'm just throwing out numbers here. Does it really matter if you make 40 million or 35 million?
How many yachts can you water ski behind, Gordon? I mean,
right. Yeah. So a lot going on in the NFL. I want to go back to baseball for 1 second, just to give you a quick list of, free agency is going to be like 1 week long now or something. But I just wrote down a few of the guys who are still free agents. They had the big signings before, but Freddie Freeman is still a free agent, and it's not clear he's going back to Atlanta. Carlos Correa, Clayton Kershaw, Trevor Story, Chris Bryant, to name 5. There's a lot of good free agents out there still. So there's a lot going on in baseball, but there's a lot going on in football. And of course, the NBA is playing. We'll get into some college next week. Although I do want to say, Rick Pitino in his 2nd year at Iona, I said in an interview before he came to Iona, if he was like 26-5, he'd leave after 2 years and go to a top 10 team. Apparently Maryland was interested in hiring him, and now he said he wants to spend the rest of his career at Iona, which is pretty interesting. But then Iona lost in the 1st round of the MAC to Ryder. So it doesn't look like Iona's getting in. There was talk earlier in the year, they were undefeated in the league. They were like 20-2 or something. But they didn't wind up with a good enough record to not win the title and still get in. So I guess he's staying. I never thought he would, but maybe he's at an age and he has enough money and he likes New York because he's from Long Island. I just thought that was an interesting college defeat, frankly. And we'll see what happens. But yeah, we'll talk about it. Maybe we will shoot Thursday morning. We'll check our schedules.
Sure.
That's a pretty good idea, actually.
Yeah, I cannot wait. Now, you wanted to say something at the end, a statistic, something, it's not Oscar related, I heard, but we're still waiting for it. What do you got?
Congratulations to Jason Tatum. He scored 50 this past week. It was his 6th 50-point game. And so the list that ESPN put up from the merger, this is the new thing now, from the merger, 1976, 1977, the most 50-point games before the age of 25, okay? All time, since the merger, I'm sorry, 1976, 77, Michael Jordan has 10, LeBron James has 8, Jason Tatum has moved into 3rd place, he's got 6, and he just surpassed Kobe, he's got 5. That includes playoffs and play-in games. Another new stat, play-in games. Those aren't playoff games, those 7-10, that 7, 8, 9, 10 game. And then the 7-10 game, are they all play-in games now? But in any event, just got me thinking. I don't remember Oscar scoring a ton of 50 games, but I didn't even look up Oscar. I looked up, as you would imagine, Wilt Chamberlain. So when Wilt was 23, that was his first year in the league. He had 5 50-point games during the regular season and 2 in the playoffs. So he had 7 in his first season. This list goes up to 10. In his second season, he had 7. So he's got 14 greater or equal to 50 points after 2 years in the league. When he turned 25, and he turned 25 before the season started, so you can't count any of those games, he averaged 50 a game. I'm just saying, Joe, I'm just saying, if you have to go with from the merger, which you don't, but if you're going to go with the merger, you might want to say, I don't know, maybe some guy scored more than 50 before the merger, maybe. You don't have to tell us. We know it's either Wilt or Oscar.
Right. And it still amazes me that the talk of the greatest of all time is Mike or LeBron. To me, for my money, and I never really saw him play, I just look at numbers, it's Wilt. No one has done what he could do. I know he only had 2 championships, I think. But
you can make a good argument for Wilt. I'm an Oscar guy, as you know, but you can certainly make a good argument.
Or Oscar, right. You know, one of those.
Easily the most dominant player in the history of the world. It's so far back, if you think Shaq is second, it's way, way, way far back to number 2. Right.
Exactly. That's good stuff, man. That just tells you the difference. I think Bird had 4. Larry Bird.
I think you're right.
Because when I said Tatum broke Bird's record, I was like, Bird, what?
Yeah, but I think if Bird was playing today, he'd be shooting like 12, 13 threes a game.
Yeah, that's
true. Back then,
if
you shot 4 or 5, that was unusual.
True. So, and he had a lot of guys to, he had McHale and he had Dennis Johnson, and he had a lot of guys to distribute, work the ball to. But hey, great stuff, man. Well, Selection Sunday is here. It'll get us through to the playoffs. At least hockey playoffs are coming up, and then basketball, and then football's around the corner.
Yeah, Joe, one more thing, if I could. This Sunday morning on WFAN radio, I'm doing a show with Rick Wolf, and we're going to focus on, now that it's springtime, we're going to focus on youth baseball, aluminum bats, pitch counts, what's happened. I give Rick credit because we got that changed years ago when Dr. Andrews gave them pitch counts, Little League, and they used Dr. Andrews' pitch counts, but they changed the days of rest. They never told Dr. Andrews. And Rick got Steve Keener, the president of Little League, on his radio show. And Keener said, well, if Dr. Andrews comes to us about the days of rest, where they took, if you threw 85 pitches, you needed 4 days of rest. That's what Dr. Andrews said. And when they opened the regular Little League season, they took 85 pitches, but they made it 3 days of rest. And then in the dopey World Series, Little League Williamsport, it was 2 days of rest. So you could throw 85 pitches on Monday, Thursday, and Sunday. you could throw 255 pitches in a week. I did some research at the time. Only CC Sabathia had thrown more pitches in a week than a lot of little leaguers. And then during the tournament, eventually I interviewed Dr. Andrews on tape and I told him this, and he didn't know. He had no idea. And he was clearly a little upset. I got to talk to him, Steve Kallas, WFAN, just want to talk to you about Little League pitch counts. He had no idea that they had changed it. And Keener had said to Rick, if Dr. Andrews tells me, I'll consider it. Well, Dr. Andrews told him, and 2 years later, they changed it to 4 days of rest all the time. And I think we saved hundreds of Tommy John surgeries, maybe more, because the two kids I focused on who had thrown 230 and 237 pitches, I think it was in 8 days, not 7, but they could have in 7. That's the point. They both had Tommy John surgery by the same surgeon in Ohio before they were 16. And that surgeon, Kremchek, was eventually on Real Sports. He said it was child abuse to have kids throw that many pitches.
Wow.
So that's been fixed today, but there are other problems, like if you play in the Little League and you play in a travel team. I got one place out in Long Island, and I want people to listen to this if they have kids from 5 years old to 20 years old. Because if you play in those travel teams, they're usually a no pitch counts, and you just get abused by your coach. You, the parent, have to stick up. So Sunday morning at 8 o'clock, don't forget to move your clocks ahead.
Yeah.
Which is another problem with people listening. But, and I'm also going to put up an interesting 10-minute thing I did when I did my Powell Memorial Hall of Fame interview that you're familiar with. I did a separate 10-minute thing just on the Little League and the pitch counts and the aluminum bats that I think people who listen to Rick's show will be interested in looking at. And I'm going to post that Sunday on Speaking of Sports with Steve Kallas. And it's already up at Powell Memorial Academy YouTube channel. If you click on if you go to YouTube and then go to Powell Memorial Academy and click on, it's like 33 videos up there. I've interviewed, the guys, Brendan Malone, Lenny Elmore, Joe Crowley, who's the 10-time congressman who lost to AOC, big story in New York. And we're going to do a lot. Tony Colon, who was an Olympic runner at 19 and was actually in Munich, Germany, in the next building over in the 72 Olympics. There's some great interviews there. I'm not popping mine. I'm just popping the part where I talked about what Rick and I did for 10 minutes. So it's Sunday morning, 8 a.m., WFAN.com, 6:60 a.m. if you're in the New York City area. But I think it'll be worth it for anybody who's got kids who are playing baseball. And I mean from very young all the way through high school, virtually into college.
Fantastic stuff, man. Great stuff as usual. We will be listening, and you can catch this podcast weekly on Steve's Facebook forum page, Speaking of Sports with Steve Kallas. Also my Facebook page. You can follow Steve's videos, westchestercountypost.com, on YouTube, and you can follow me on Twitter at JostJZak975. We're wrapping up. I think we're going to do a tape next Thursday because the tournament starts at high noon next Thursday, and cannot wait for that. Stephen, great job as usual, man. We'll catch you this weekend.
Always a pleasure, Joe.
All right, folks. Appreciate you watching, and have a great weekend. God bless, and we'll talk to you next week.